I don't think anything I learned to this day, I'm just being honest with you guys, I could have totally not went to college and built the same company I did. Like it didn't, me going to college didn't help me build my company at all. What helped me was the internships and the things I did throughout college, in sales and running a company and learning stuff at a really, really young age, which you guys are, people in this room are beating me. Like nobody introduced me to entrepreneurship till I was 19. For people that don't want to be entrepreneurs, let me sell you on it real quick. If you could go back, if I go back in time, and this is the straight up honest answer, I'm not lying or embellishing at all. If somebody said, hey, you could have been a star NFL athlete and dominated for, I think the average person plays for like 2.5 years or something, and you could have had a 4-year career in the NFL and had a $30 million contract and killed it, or you could be where you're at today in entrepreneurship, I would pick entrepreneurship. Right? That sounds pretty crazy because everybody works really, really hard to be NFL athletes, NBA athletes. I would take being a badass entrepreneur over a NBA or NFL or whatever athlete. And there's a couple of reasons why. They all have like short durations, right? Like, so you go and make a ton of money and impact, and then all of a sudden now it's done. And then you got to find out what you're going to do the next like 50 years of your life. And that's really hard for people. So you make a lot of money right away, and then it kind of dies out. I think being an entrepreneur is two things. Like you can have great income long term, obviously, but more important than that, like you can impact the world and you're your own boss. Like for us, if we decide tomorrow that we want to, actually we sell walking boots, but if we want to prevent some injury or way people are dying, we can sit there, we can go and reverse engineer the issue, sit down with like product experts, product engineers, design patents, design a product, and we can change the world. That's really cool for us to be able to like, we have the ability to do that, We've already done it with other products. We can do it again. And not a lot of people have that. We also have, when you employ 300, 400, 500 people, or some companies, thousands or whatever, you get to change people's lives. Like being a famous actor, you might impact somebody for 30 minutes or an hour and a half or whatever, and that's it. We get to really, really change people's lives for the well-being. Like, we have a give back program where if people in our company are having trouble, we bless them with money and be able to take care of some financial issue. So we can just do things that change people's lives on a big level. The reason I mentioned that, I did a program 3 years ago, went to Harvard. When I sat down the first day, they said the same seats you guys are sitting in it was in the business engineering building, and they're like, you're sitting in the same seats that Mark Zuckerberg sat on and the Bill Gates. And the irony is both of them left Harvard to go start their own companies before even graduating. So the point at Harvard was, they say that entrepreneurs are the one that changed the world. It's not athletes, it's not actors, it's not even actually politicians. It really comes down to entrepreneurs and companies that change the world. They have the biggest impact. So tip number one is on the idea of college. And I'm not for or against college, but I just think it's good to have a plan, right? So if you're gonna go to college, great. If you're not gonna go to college, that's great too. But in both cases, you need to have a plan, right? And if you're going to do anything, whether you want to be an engineer in life, you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, and so on, you have to go to college, right? You can't be a world-famous, world-renowned surgeon and not go to school. That's just not how the world works. So there is an element where some people do need to go to school, and then some people don't. So I'll tell you the other path. In Sacramento, I'm part of a group called Entrepreneurs Organizations. I have these top 65 best CEOs, best founders, people that started their own company. We went around the room, and right about half of them went to college and half didn't. Like there's for every story of somebody that went to school, learned something, that helped them start their business, there's another story that the person never went to school at all. So I don't think the data, at least the real life data I've seen from meeting people, it shows either way. I think you'd be successful in both aspects. Whether you go to college or not, number two is do an internship. Let's say you wanted to be an interior designer. My goal in life is to design like beautiful homes or hotels or whatever. I would say, hey, instead of going to interior design school for 4 years and spending like an insane amount of money, like I know some people in LA that went to like Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and they spent, it's something crazy. It's like 20 to 30 grand a year. They spent like $100,000 going to do this, right? And they come out and they got this degree, and then they got to go. And this is how it really works. Then they send their resume out, and then some are hiring, some people aren't. They come in, they get paid like $17 an hour to start, right? And then they're digging themselves out of this like financial hole for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, probably longer, 5, I don't even know how long, until they can get out, because they have to pay off all that college debt, right? So basically, like 10 years into this, they went to school for 4 or 5 years. They spent 4 or 5 years trying to get out of debt, and then eventually now they're actually making an impact in the interior design world, right? The best strategy could skip all that. Like this one idea could save you 9 years off your plan. Go find the best interior designer in all of California, or find the top 5, and just write them emails, hit them up on Instagram, LinkedIn, just try different avenues and show persistence. Say, hey, interior design is like my passion in life. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. You're somebody that I look up to, and you're a role model. It'd mean the world if I could intern under you. I'll work for free, and I'll do anything for you. I'm committed for whatever the duration is that you're committed to. I'm committed for 6 months, committed for 12 months. It won't cost you a dime. We hire, like even in Sacramento, we've only have 2 sales reps, that's it. That's all the territory can hold. So it's very rare. It's like every 5 years, once every 5 years, we'll hire for this position. So we weren't hiring, and this girl moved back from ASU. She went to ASU, she came up here, she's like, I want to work for Precision Medical. And we're like, we're not hiring. There's 2 spots, we're not hiring. And then she's like, I'll do anything. It was like, I loved her persistence, but like, doesn't matter how much you persist, we are not hiring. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and you don't have a background in sales, and you know nothing about medical. She's like, I want to work at your company. I will do anything. I'm like, I don't tell you. Appreciate your persistence. We're not hiring. So I'm like, thank you. We kind of had like a 45-minute interview. I'm like, appreciate your time. And then I went off and kept working on the company. Next day, I showed up to work. She's sitting at the front desk. I'm like, we're not, I'm like, you were not hired. I'm like, what are you doing here? I was laughing. She's like, I got you Starbucks. I'm like, thank you. I do need coffee. I appreciate that. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just going to work for free here. I know you weren't going to hire me, but I'll do anything. If you need copies, anything, I'll be a reception. She goes, when I came here last time, you guys didn't have a receptionist. It's something you need. I'm like, kind of actually do need a receptionist, but I'm like, I don't know the legality behind this. I'm like, I don't know if you can work for free. She's like, I don't even mind. Like, I'll work for free for you. And I'm like, how do you say no to that, right? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like such a weird like thing. So I asked like our COO, I'm like, is she allowed to work for free? He's like, let me figure it out. We actually ended up having to pay her because at the time, she was like, anyway, so she became this receptionist for us with like a 4-year degree from ASU. And then all of a sudden, like, something happened one day where some doctor needed something. There was no rep, so she's like, you know what? I'll just run over there and help the doctor real quick. I'm like, and we didn't have a choice. Like the reps were already in different areas. Like one was in Chico, one was down in Modesto. She's like, I'll just run over and take care of it for you. Clinic loved her. Doctor was like, this person's awesome. And then she's like slowly, like week by week, over like a 1-year period, was like, next thing you know, she was just in all the accounts helping out, and then she was like literally doing sales without ever being a sales rep. This girl ended up. We ended up making her associate sales rep, and then eventually a full-time sales rep, and then it actually flipped on us. This is the funny thing. I'm like, man, she is amazing. She's going to be one of our top sales reps eventually. She comes to me one day, she's like, Boston Scientific just hired me for an interview, and they're going to pay me like something crazy, like $350,000 or something salary. I'm going to go women's urology is like something I always wanted to do. And I'm bummed to leave you guys, but I'm so grateful. And I'm like, man, that's amazing. Somebody that was like told no, and then all of a sudden we're like trying to fight. No, please stay here. And she's like, sorry guys, and then she kills it. She's like still in medical and does so well. But that's like, a lot of people don't think that way. I know that sounds probably simple the way I explain that, but people do not use that rationale. When I was in high school, I really wanted to be a stockbroker, and I had this like false reality because I saw all these shows like sell, buy, do this, yeah. Well, and like just sounded exciting. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a stockbroker. And then the reality was, after I graduated college, I ended up becoming a stockbroker. And the first day I worked there, they're like, yeah, here's a list of 1,000 people. You don't know them. You're gonna call them and try and sell them a bond. I'm like, okay. And I started dialing. After about like 3 months of just basically, I was just cold calling people trying to sell bonds. I'm like, I absolutely hate this. This is like the worst job I've ever had in my life. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I wish I would have done an internship, because I left a great job to go become a stockbroker, find out I didn't like it when I was like 24 or 25. Like, I wish I would have known that when I was 18, because then I would have probably went and got a different background. So it sounds simple, but just, I don't know if you guys take notes or whatever, but just remember that, like, do an internship, doing something that you're passionate about. It's not even bad. Maybe after 2 or 3 months, you're like, I don't really like this. That is way better to learn that now at a young age than try and get all these like degrees and backgrounds in something and find out you hate it anyway. And that happens all the time. I had somebody come and speak to me when I was at Cal Poly, my 3rd year in college. This guy, he was really young. Well, I mean, young for how, at the time I was like 23 and he was like 30. And the guy was worth, I think, $30 million at age 30. I'm like, holy crap, like how did you get so much money so young? And he was an alumni at Cal Poly. And he said, it's the weirdest story. He didn't know what he wanted to do when he graduated college, but his dad had a plumbing business. So he went and worked for his dad because he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go be work with my dad, right? And he's like, it's really weird to have a degree from Cal Poly and then you become a plumber, right? But when he was in there being a plumber with his dad, he realized, and I know nothing about plumbing, so I'm probably gonna say this a little bit wrong, but there was some like valve gasket thing that was just always a crack on a toilet and always had issues, and they were always replacing them. And he took a year and figured out like how to redo that. It's just like this little, it came out to like a 30-cent part, you know. He figured out how to make it. He made it over China, CNC'd it. He made it for like 3 or 4 cents, made 1 million of them, shipped them back here. And then he went to like Home Depot and Lowe's, like, hey, this is the issue we have as plumbers. Here's something to do. The guy ends up making this $30 million business and selling it by age 30. It was the weird, he said it was like, in life, it's the people that, it's the weirdest things in the world, but you just go and do something that, you know, for him, he's like, I want to work for my dad, and he's like, then I wanted to solve a problem, right? That was like my idea right here. I think it's a huge misconception. Like on social media, there'd be these people that drive up in like Lamborghinis and stuff, like, oh, here's how you get rich. And it's not really, in my experience, meaning like people that are worth a lot of money in life, it's not typically like how it's done is these get rich programs things. It's more you dive in an industry and you find like a need or a way to fix something, and you do it because you add value. Other people are gonna need that and they're gonna wanna use your product. I'm a huge snowboarder growing up, and I listened to somebody back in the day, and they're like, oh, do what you love. And I'm like, okay, I love snowboarding, that's what I'm gonna do. And I tried to do that for a couple of years. I'm like, how do I make money in snowboarding? And it was like almost impossible. And what I learned is like, don't try and go into business on something you love. Like I still love snowboarding. I'm glad that I never got into it because in terms of a business, because then I probably hate snowboarding, because if you do it every day as a business, you don't like as much. But I make my money on helping patients and help them heal. Like I would have never thought I went down that path. I want to go into medical, then while being in medical, I found a need, and then we found a need to make that product better, then we made it even better. Does that make sense? So you won't have to always figure that out at a young age, but focus more on the need and less on like less on what you love. I know that sounds weird because people are out there in marketing, people are always like, do what you love. I know there's like a handful of stories of people that did what they loved and made a ton of money. And there's a few. That is not like, if you go out there and surveyed 1,000 successful people, there would be like 20 out of 1,000 that did what they love and made money. Like that is not, it's actually probably the opposite. It'd be like, I did what I loved and now I'm really poor because I have no money because I just travel around everywhere and take pictures. And it's like, I don't really have anything, you know? It's probably the opposite. People, if you go out there with like, I want to help the world and fill a need, and by doing that, I'm gonna make an impact. For anybody young, eliminate distractions. Right. The one thing that I had going for me at a young age, we kind of joked about like cell phones didn't really exist and Google wasn't there. You guys are incredibly the most freaking distracted generation ever, and that's not like a great thing, right? One of the reasons I crush everybody, I'm not being cocky or arrogant on that, is I get hyper focused, right? I got severe ADD. Anybody that knows me, I'll be like, oh, squirrel this, like what? But when I decide to do something, I'm like, doosh, and like the world does not exist. And so eliminate, like for me, it's like social media, Instagram, fantasy football, all those things become distractions for you guys, and it's like TikTok or whatever, you know, whatever platforms, is probably stuff that I don't even know exists. But you're just on your phones, all of a sudden it's like 2 hours later, you're like, what did I just do? You know, you ever look at the clock and you're like, it's, and I don't know the complexity, maybe it's like 6 p.m. and then all of a sudden you look up, you're like, whoa, it's 8 p.m. How did that 2 hours just go by? You know, you could have spent that the one thing that you got, everybody in this room has over me right now, you guys have time on your side, right? It's your big advantage. You have time. Don't waste that. Like, you don't want to sit back and look back 4 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I'm right where everybody else is at, or I didn't accomplish anything. It's kind of, you staring at a phone doesn't help anybody. Does that make sense? And I'm not like, and you can do it by design. Like I know people, successful people that have and I do it myself, I'll just set a cutoff time. Like, hey, I'll be in here for 30 minutes, but then I have a timer goes off, and then I'm off. Make sense? Because you can just get lost in your phone. You can get lost in TV shows. You can get lost in YouTube. Anything. If you take big goals and eliminate distractions, you can accomplish amazing things. One of the biggest things I learned is the power of goal setting. And I'll ask you this real quick. I want you guys to be honest. Who's set goals? Raise your hand if you set goals. Raise your hand high. Okay. Who has actually written down those goals on paper? Raise your hand high. You should be proud of that. Okay. You guys are like, and this is like not your typical. Yeah.
That's what we do here.
No, I know, but you guys got to remember, like, I do this at universities with hundreds of kids, and they'll be like, who has goals? And like, out of like 300 people, probably 200 raise their hands like, I have goals, And like, who actually took the time to write them down? There's like 50. And then out of the 50, I'm like, who has a detailed plan for each goal? You guys, right? And it kind of starts going down, right? So this Harvard study, and it's just 1 minute or less, they did this study, and it's a blow you away. It's all like documented. They did it like 35 years ago. It's all the data is like proven out now. And they took people they had 3 subgroups: people that had no goals, people that had goals, and then people had goals with a detailed plan. Does that make sense? Those are the 3 groups. Out of 100 people, there was only 3 or 4% of the group had detailed, written, specific goals. And this is, when I say out of 100, it's really out of like thousands, but I'm just giving you the ratio for every 100. So for every 100 in the survey or in the study, these are people. So if you go to Harvard, you're pretty smart in general. So these aren't like your average humans. The study ends up coming out 30 years later. This group of only 4 people out of 100 beat every one of the 96. So if you took the income of the 96 other people in the room combined, all 96 people, these 4 made more money than all 96 combined times 3. And it's crazy because people get pissed off in the world. They're like, oh, it's not fair, the 1%ers or the people that make all this money or blah, blah. It's like, there is that 1% group that makes a lot of money. And it's like, and you go and learn from them. They all do the same thing. They all set goals. They all have detailed plans. And then they eliminate distractions and they go execute on it. And it's like, not like, it sounds like very simple, but that is like the formula that works.